Justin, how have you
I
been
was,
dealing with all of this?
yeah,
Because in a lot of ways, you're really at the eye of the storm.
for
How
sure.
are you holding up this week?
Oh, I mean, I'm doing fine. I'm just, it's been interesting to see the left media infrastructure that has been arguing against the idea. Mostly because one, there hasn't been, a willingness to reciprocate a different type of idea or a time frame for, when something else could possibly happen, when this leverage can be had again, and what it can be used for. And to see a lot of the people who, supported initially, because I think it was such a fresh idea and such, something that could galvanize us after, being away from the Bernie movement for so long, and feeling so devastated, kind of,
Yeah.
especially with the election and everything. This was finally something that I was texting some of my friends, like, look at this idea. This might be something we could actually do. This might actually work. This is something that progressives in the House can actually use their leverage, because we're always like, oh, we wish the progressives could do more, but they are only so many votes. Well, guess what? This is your golden opportunity, right? This is the slim margin that we can actually take advantage of. So that's kind of been the most, I think, disappointing part on my end. But I mean, I've felt a lot of resolve in the fact that there is a lot of hype for it, a lot of people that are still supporting it. So that's nice to see. As to what you were talking about earlier, Bree, um, the point about political capital, that point is really interesting and funny to me, because on the one hand, people argue that progressives are completely powerless. There's nothing progressives in the House can do. And then on the other hand, they argue that they have some type of limited political capital. It can't really be both, right? It has to be one or the other. In my view, I think they don't have any institutional power, and the corporate wing already tried to primary AOC and Ilhan Rashida as well. So what are they afraid of? Another primary? Like, they would beat that other primary because they're popular,
Right.
because they actually advocate for this stuff. So this actually improves their ability to win a re-election, improves their ability to be even more popular, and improves their ability to actually have that crossover appeal to bring in these mainstream liberals who think Kamala and who think not Nancy Pelosi are actually on their side, and actually show them, no, these are the people we have to start fighting against as well. You have to make that contradiction, because if you never make that contradiction, you're never going to have the numbers to actually be the majority in the House, where progressives are going to be the majority in the House. That's not going to happen for possibly decades. Okay, so they have to use these measures like the Tea Party did, to actually affect change and change the conversation and change the narrative. And this is a golden opportunity. And the fact that they don't seem like they're willing to put anything on the line for this, honestly, is very, very, very disappointing. It
Yeah.
really is, as someone who has admired the squad and cheerleaded for the squad and talked to people who I would never talk to, politically about, just about politics in general, who are relatively apolitical. And I bring them up because I'm like, these are real people that are fighting for us. And now, to, be on this side of it, it's a little upsetting, to be honest.
Justin, someone asked if other professional sports personalities can get behind M4A, and someone else asked if there was support among your teammates. And then I would love to ask you, Justin, to share your own personal story, which you referred to in the town hall.
Yeah. So to the first question, you'd be surprised, or maybe I don't know, because I think most of my teammates are relatively apolitical. I actually think it represents a good swath of the country, where most people don't focus on this stuff, don't pay attention to this stuff, not necessarily because they don't care, but I think when you just get caught up in a lot of other life things, if this isn't a core interest to you, there's not a whole lot of time you take out of your day to attend to it. And so I think because of Trump, and we talked about this, Bree, on David Sroda's show,
Yeah.
I am able to actually have a lot more of these conversations with my teammates because they are paying attention. And so that's why I think it's a little more important to push for these things now, particularly before everyone just goes back to sleep under Biden. right? This is a moment where you can actually speak to people who normally don't pay attention to this stuff and actually say, break it down. You think the Democrats are on your side? Well, what if I told you that the leader of the Democrats doesn't support universal health care and won't even put it up for a vote? Right? That's something I can actually talk to them about. I can't be like, well, there's this guy named Richard Neal who's in the House of Representatives. They have these committees and he's the ways and check. Like, I can't, like, people, when they hear that, they shut their mind off if they're not,
Yeah.
into politics. You have to actually be able to engage with them on something that they can relate to. And right now, that's something that everyone can relate to. So that's why I think it's so important to push for it right now.
I wanted to know about your personal experience.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. No, don't worry.
Yeah. So when I was 3, my mom passed away from breast cancer at 31. Obviously, going through that and everything that is behind that, just in life terms, is very difficult for a family in general. As I got older, though, I started to ask more questions. Like I said, I was 2 or 3, so I started to ask my older siblings and some of my family members more questions about this stuff, particularly regarding like finances and the financial situation we were in at the time. Both my parents worked, middle class, live in the Chicago suburbs, and my mom was not sick for very long, but just the amount of time and the amount of care and chemo and all that stuff that they had to do. She started to worry that if she had to get treatment for X amount more months or whatever, that would have just completely bankrupted our family. And obviously at the time, I'm 2 or 3, so I don't know anything about it. But when I put myself in the shoes of some of my older family members and aunts and grandparents and everyone who's going through that, it's like the fact that you even have to think about that while you're fighting for your life at 30 years old, when your whole family's upended. The fact that that's a worry in your mind is so inhumane, and it's just so telling of the not only the tangible and material horribleness of our system, but the emotional, right? Like when you heard Steph share that story and you heard how people ask her, "How are you doing?" No, I'm not doing okay. My husband is dying and we can't afford to get him the help he needs, right? This emotional toll this takes on us as a country is something that is such a heavy burden to bear that I don't think we really think of it in that kind of that humanities type of terms as much as we should, because it does wreck families, it does wreck lives. And so I don't want to hear all this bullshit about we need to wait for another time. Like, I don't want to hear that, because while you're waiting, every single day you're going by waiting is another family that just like mine that gets created in this system, right? And so I'm done waiting. I'm done hearing the bullshit about waiting and about how we need to do this and that at another time. You can do this now. You can do this. You can do more tomorrow. You can do even more the next week, right? But you don't skip over the now and wait for a better time in the future.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's like when people are like, "Why now?" I mean, it's urgent.